starting pretty much exactly where the last season left off, Season 6 begins with Clark now stuck in the Phantom Zone. As far as I'm aware, we've never really seen exactly how this place works before, certainly not in live action, and well, it's apparently just a vast desert. No really, it's literally just a huge, barren, grey and sandy landscape, and the only forms of life anywhere are the intergalactic menaces Jor-El imprisoned there. As Clark gets to experience firsthand though, not all the prisoners are completely corporeal, as he's attacked by the eponymous phantoms pretty much as soon as he arrives. Luckily for him though, it seems he has a bit of a guardian angel even in this place.
Welcome to the Phantom Zone.
This is Raya, and after some initial hesitation, she eventually reveals that she's actually not a prisoner, as Jor-El just sent her to this zone to protect her when Krypton fell. After Clark explains that Zod has returned to Earth, Raya also reveals that Jor-El gave her some kind of crystal that not only keeps the phantoms at bay, it will allow Clark to leave the zone if he uses it at this portal altar thing. Getting to said portal isn't without any issues though, as while heading towards it, Clark and Raya are attacked by those Zod disciples Clark imprisoned at the start of the previous season. Before they were able to harm Clark too badly though, it seems he may have been a bit too quick to trust Raya after all.
Namek, wait! Don't kill him!
Why should I spare his life? The one who sent me here.
He can open the gateway. I was bringing him to you. He can free us all.
This may seem like a bit of a betrayal, but it was all just another ruse to catch the Zodsters off guard as Raya attacks them once they reach the portal. This does give Clark the chance to escape, but it also leads to Raya getting pretty badly wounded. To make matters even worse, Clark might now be free and back on Earth, but it seems he's not the only one who made it there. Clark doesn't actually learn of or deal with the other escapees until sometime later though, as he first heads back to Zod, still residing in Lex's body. He's actually been busy not only fending off kind of an assassination attempt by Martha, Lionel and Lana, but also enacting his plan to create a new Krypton on Earth. How? Well, by gaining access to a military satellite network and with the help of some Kryptonian machinery, using said satellites to blast the Earth with some sort of laser, which will apparently reshape its crust. Yeah, I'm gonna call bullshit on that. Seriously, I know this is a comic book show and all, but there's suspension of disbelief, and then there's just taking the piss. Satellites and lasers aren't just pure magic, you know. They can't suddenly start doing absolutely impossible things just because someone tampers with them. Sure, Zod is an incorporeal alien with super advanced technology and all that, but it's not like he does anything at all to the actual satellites, not from what I could tell. His tech only grants him access and maybe some extra energy or some such, as the only interaction he has with the satellites themselves is through this computer thing, meaning the Earth reshaping laser beam was apparently always there. How the hell does any of that make any kind of sense? None of this is at all necessary for the plot either. They could just as easily have had Zod use some kind of crypto tech or alien ship or something instead, and we'd get pretty much the exact same result. They'd hardly even have to change the script at all, so no, they really didn't need to insult our intelligence with this absolutely ridiculous nonsense. Zod doesn't really get too far with this plan either way though, as Clark arrives and breaks his Kryptonian computer thing pretty much just as he starts this process. Just because his laser-based plan is foiled though, Zod still isn't defeated as he faces off against Clark and kinda kicks his butt to be honest. Oh, Clark does fight back, but yeah, Zod is clearly the more capable combatant. It's not like Zod actually kills Clark though, as I guess that would be a bit of a bummer, but he does force Clark to seemingly give up and what else? Kneel before Zod. As it happens though, it seems this was exactly the opening Clark needed.
Father sends his regards.
Yep, Zod is basically defeated by his own hubris. If he hadn't made Clark kneel and offer up his hand in servitude, Clark wouldn't really have had a chance to slip him that crystal. Then again, this is Zod, so of course things will go wrong for him. That's just Zod's law. In any case, Zod has been successfully foiled for now, but there are still plenty of ramifications to come from all of this. Primarily, and as already mentioned, Clark eventually learns that he wasn't the only one who made it out of the Phantom Zone when he comes into contact with a woman who really, really likes plant life. In fact, she kinda is plant life. Essentially, this woman calling herself Gloria and claiming to be a park ranger actually turns out to be an alien capable of producing these thorny vine things. Not only can she use said vines to ensnare her victims, she can also use them to fill their lungs with seeds that eventually causes more vines to burst forth from their chests. Yeah, pretty horrific stuff. Even though Clark can be hurt by these vines due to the alien origin, he does eventually manage to vanquish this botanic menace after Chloe discovers that she's vulnerable to electricity. She is pretty much just the opening act though, as this encounter is kinda the launching pad for Clark to track down and stop the other inmates that escaped alongside him. With all that in mind, you might think that a good majority of this season would be focused on Clark finding and dealing with these various zoners as they call them, but you'd actually be kinda wrong. Oh, it's definitely a factor, as Clark does indeed track them down eventually, but it's honestly much less of a focus than the oh-so-important and just downright tiring amount of relationship drama this time around. Oh joy. This is actually why I originally fell away from this show around this season. I'm not going to say with absolute certainty exactly when or why that actually happened, but yeah, I'm fairly certain it was around this time. I couldn't quite explain why, but I just didn't get along with the show as much anymore. Something just felt a bit off. That's not to say that there weren't still some good or even great episodes here and there, certainly in hindsight, but even watching it back now, it just doesn't feel quite the same, no. I obviously did return to the show eventually, and I'm not saying this is a terrible season, but yeah, I just think they focus a bit too much on everything except the whole Superman angle. Sure, it's good to see some of the more normal aspects of these characters' lives as well, but in a season that kicks off with a literal alien takeover and introduces a bunch of space criminals into the mix, what do we focus on? Whether or not Lex and Lana will actually get married. You know, because that's what really matters in all of this. Fair enough, Lex and Lana's relationship isn't exactly normal or healthy, and we do get other storylines as well, but yeah, they do focus a lot on these two's deepening relationship. Unfortunately, they're still not willing to let go of the whole Lana and Clark angle either, as we of course get even more of this love triangle nonsense. No, we don't necessarily want Lana to end up with Lex, especially given how purely evil he turns this season, but we know she's not going to end up with Clark either, so why are we still pretending she might? Just get over it already! They even try to convince us that they will finally move on by the end of this season, as they once again have Lana seemingly die. It is a bit more obvious that it's definitely some sort of trick this time though, as she seemingly dies in a car explosion while trying to escape town and Lex. As convincingly conclusive as that might sound though, just take a look at this and tell me something doesn't seem a bit off to you.
Lana!
Yeah, a bit too perfect, isn't it? Lionel just so happens to be there just in time to witness the explosion? And what about that truck? Seemed to pass by at just the right moment, didn't it? I'm probably just being paranoid. Lana must be dead this time and definitely won't be back for at least one more season. That would just be silly. Just why would Lana even be running away in the first place though? Has Lex really become that bad? Pretty much, yeah. Okay, so it doesn't seem very likely that he'd ever intentionally hurt Lana, as he does seem to genuinely love her, in his own deranged sort of way, but he has definitely gone complete supervillain mode this season. As far as Lana is concerned, Lex actually doesn't seem too bad at first, as he is very loving and attentive. He might be a bit overprotective and paranoid, and he does still keep some of his more dubious activities a secret from her, but overall, he seems like a genuinely nice boyfriend. Until Lana gets pregnant, that is. Don't get me wrong, Lex isn't unsupportive or anything, quite the contrary. He's actually thrilled and incredibly enthusiastic about the prospect of becoming a father, even going so far as to decorate a complete baby room only a short while after hearing the news. If anything, he's actually a bit too excited, especially considering Lana was never actually pregnant in the first place. In the episode Progeny, Lana finds out that Lex actually faked her whole pregnancy by dosing her with synthetic hormones disguised as prenatal vitamins. He even made her believe that she had a miscarriage after he and Lana's original doctor had a rather fatal falling out, probably as he could no longer get said drugs, but yeah, it was all an elaborate and complete hoax to ensure Lana wouldn't leave Lex. That is just psychotic. I mean, damn! As twisted and evil as all that is though, Lex isn't any less ruthless about his business ventures as seen with his new season-spanning project, initially just known as 33.1. We did get the teeniest of hints that this was a thing at the end of one episode last season, but this is where it goes into full effect. In essence, Lex has been collecting, imprisoning, and experimenting on people with abilities in all sorts of horrific and sometimes lethal ways in an effort to create an army of superpowered, mind-controlled, mercenary assassin soldier things. He actually appears to be working with the government on this, or at least one senator, but when said senator tries to back out due to lack of progress, Lex uses a prototype of said soldiers to have him assassinated. This all leads to some rather significant and harrowing revelations about this project, officially codenamed Ares, which, if you know Greek mythology, might at least give you a bit of a hint as to what it's all about. Not that the whole human exploitation and experimentation with superpowers and whatnot shouldn't also be a bit of a clue, but yeah, that name isn't exactly subtle either. It does take quite a while before we learn all that much about any of this though, as most of it is only hinted at until the last few episodes. Until then, the only info we or Clark really get is through some of his allies, one of which is a brand new character by the name of Oliver Queen, better known as Green Arrow. That's right, the League is starting to form. Personally, this is probably one of my favourite additions, not just of this season, but of the entire show. Fair enough, this is still supposed to be a show mostly about Clark becoming Superman, so you can definitely argue that it is a bit strange to make this whole show within a show that kinda overshadows and surpasses the main plot lines, but I'm sorry, Green Arrow and all the Justice League stuff is just far more interesting and entertaining than most of the Clark-specific storylines. It's way more the sort of stuff you'd want out of a show like this. None of that is to say that the rest of the show is now garbage or that any and all appearances of Oliver and company is absolute perfection, but overall, he's certainly a very welcome addition, and I'm pretty certain I'm not the only one who thinks so. As a matter of fact, this very season is kind of the origin for what would eventually become what we now call the Arrowverse. No, the Arrowverse isn't a direct spin-off to Smallville or anything, as they only have kind of a tangential connection at best, but this season, and more specifically the introduction of Green Arrow, as well as the reappearance of Aquaman, Cyborg, and The Flash...
Impulse! He didn't get to pick his own codename either.
Yeah, whatever. The point is that their appearance in this season really is what set the ball rolling on the creation of a connected DC TV-verse, as it were. No, the original idea of a direct spin-off to this show featuring these versions of these characters never really materialized, but I'm pretty sure their overall portrayal and popularity is what made the entire Arrowverse thing even a remote possibility in the first place. Fine, so technically the whole League really only makes one appearance this season, but it's such a good appearance that it single-handedly sells the idea of a potential spin-off and leaves you wanting so much more. I mean, this shot alone, for as cliched and overdone as it might be, still sends chills down my spine every time I see it. It's just so cool. Justice, as the episode is aptly named, is just such a fun ride. The characters are all portrayed perfectly, they have great chemistry and play off each other excellently, and the overall premise of them going up against and taking down one of the many suspected 33.1 facilities just works so well and makes for such an entertaining episode. It truly is this season's masterpiece. Speaking of new characters though, Oliver isn't the only new addition this season. For starters, there's the Martian Manhunter, aka John Jones, but he doesn't really get that much screen time yet. He more or less gets one episode plus a couple of minor appearances here and there, but his inclusion is still more than welcomed. Also, considering who he's played by, it must be said that he's just delicious, scrumptious, outstanding! And this most certainly isn't the most public yet of his many humiliations. Okay, I'll stop now. As mentioned though, this guy really only gets one main appearance this season, and while it's a pretty good episode overall, there's just one little problem with it: the soundtrack. Oh, it's not dreadful, and they actually do something rather clever, or at least they try to, but I'm not so sure the execution actually works as well as intended. The episode in question is titled Labyrinth, and in essence, it features Clark getting knocked out and possessed by one of the escaped Phantom Zone phantoms. As a result, he wakes up in a sanitarium and is told his entire life is nothing but a schizophrenic fantasy he concocted after a supposed psychotic break. Obviously, this is all an elaborate scheme, but considering he doesn't have any of his powers and everything he gets told seems to be true, Clark actually starts to doubt himself. As it happens though, there is one person trying to help him break free, or rather, one Martian. Every now and then, this guy will appear telling Clark to resist and fight the Phantom's influence, but considering he's seemingly just another patient claiming to be from Mars, you can't really blame Clark for having his doubts. There is another clue that this might all be fake though, and that has to do with the music and sound. You see, this entire episode not only features a different type of lighting and color correction, it also has a rather unique soundscape. It's not really music as such though, as what we actually get is just one endless droning eerie note played throughout the entire episode. And while that is a fairly neat idea, it honestly does get a bit annoying. I get what we're going for, at least I think so, but it just becomes a bit too distracting. Like I said though, there is one thing with this soundscape that actually ends up being really, really clever. You see, once in a while, the droning seems to change ever so slightly as this weird pounding noise is heard. At first, you might think this is just some artistic choice or some such, but at the end of the episode, the really clever truth is finally revealed as this noise becomes clearer and clearer.
Shall we? They're still in the barn.
Yep, that strange pounding noise is in fact Shelby barking at Clark's unconscious body. No, this doesn't exactly save the rest of the episode or anything, but come on, that's still pretty darn clever. Even with this in mind though, I still don't think the episode itself is all that great. There is one I dislike more though, and for that one, we need to talk about yet another new character, namely Jimmy Olsen. Now, you may think you know who this guy is, but as it happens, you'd probably be wrong. This is jumping ahead quite a bit, as we don't actually get the full truth about this guy until the Season 8 finale, but let's just say that this isn't the Jimmy you think you know. Oh, he's not like a villain or shapeshifter or something, he is indeed a Jimmy Olsen, he's just not the Jimmy Olsen. I know, I'm so subtle. In any case, Jimmy certainly isn't a bad character, and he's played perfectly well by Aaron Ashmore. I also really like the dynamic and chemistry between him and Chloe, and I totally buy them as a couple. His relationship with Clark is also handled fairly well, even if they maybe err a bit much on the side of Jimmy being kind of awkward and dweeby around him, at least at times. Unfortunately, while I generally think Jimmy's pretty alright, he also happens to star in my least favourite episode this season. It's not really an awful episode by any means, but I don't know, it's just kind of awkward. The briefest way to describe the episode would be to call it a what-if whodunit of sorts, all imagined by Jimmy and done in a noir style, hence the title Noir. While I usually don't mind a good murder mystery though, and I respect the stylistic choices made here, the entire thing still just feels wrong. The story's just so-so, everyone is completely out of character, and while that technically makes sense considering the setting and scenario, it certainly doesn't excuse the downright awful acting. Seriously, it's like watching a bad school play, it's absolutely terrible. Sure, you could argue that some of this is supposed to be down to Jimmy's perception of these characters and what roles his mind thinks they would fit and that sort of thing, but how does that explain why everyone is not only acting in the most stereotypical way possible, they're even doing that badly? No one is ever convincing, as it just comes across, at best, like the characters, as in Clark, Chloe, Lionel, etc., are all putting on an act, and I just don't get how that makes sense. Yes, it's an imaginary world based on the noir films Jimmy loves, but if the acting there is usually acceptable, why would it be so bad in his dream? It just don't add up. All that being said, I could now start to go into way more detail about pretty much everything in this season, but I honestly don't think it's very necessary or worthwhile. Yeah, there are smaller plots and developments I haven't really covered, like the episode where Clark unlocks his super breath for example, but there really isn't all that much worth talking about that I haven't at least mentioned. Besides, I don't really want to ramble on endlessly anyway, so we might as well just wrap things up and get to the rather explosive finale. Like I already mentioned, Lex has spent most of the season trying to build his Ares super soldiers, but after his prototype was stopped by Clark, his efforts have hit a bit of a snag. It seems they were actually using the cells from one of the so-called zoners to somehow keep all the prototype's powers under control or some such, but with him gone, they now don't have any more cells to work with. If only there was a phantom somewhere they could try to capture. Yup, it seems Lex has actually learned about the existence of one of the phantoms, and as the finale, rather aptly titled Phantom, starts, he's busy hunting it down. He is not the only one though, as the Manhunter actually gets to it first, but he doesn't exactly do a brilliant job of containing it. Yeah, not the most effective hunter ever, is he? Before he has a chance to try again though, Lex and his goons swarm in, but as they apparently need a live host, the Phantom manages to escape by bursting forth from the possessed man and flying away. Meanwhile, Clark is visited by Lana who, as previously mentioned, is running away and has come to say goodbye. This not only leads Clark to learn that Lana already knows about his powers due to some other shenanigans earlier in the season, he also discovers that Lionel was the one forcing Lana to marry Lex after she had decided to leave him. Feeling understandably enraged and betrayed by this, Clark finds and confronts Lionel, who claims he only did this to help Clark. He had learned that Lex was tracking a phantom, and instead of just telling Clark or confronting Lex himself, he decided to blackmail Lana so she could get close enough to find out more. Yeah, seems perfectly reasonable to me too. Clark certainly doesn't buy his reasoning, but before he can really hurt Lionel too badly, he's stopped by the Manhunter, who not only vouches for Lionel as an emissary of Jor-El, but also confirms that Lex is after a Phantom. Unfortunately, he's unable to help track down or capture it before Lex, as he apparently has to leave Earth's atmosphere to heal his rather significant injuries. No matter, Clark and Chloe manages to narrow the search to some young boy on their own, but unfortunately, it seems he's already been kidnapped by Lex. Having no other leads, this effectively puts an end to their search, which is only made worse by the fact that Lois could have led them straight to Lex's location if Chloe hadn't left her alone. Yeah, it seems Lois has managed to find her way to Lex's new secret location under some dam. How did she do this? Well, as it turns out, that Ares prototype was actually a former friend or boyfriend or friend with benefits of Lois, and as he kidnapped her before Clark took him out, she was actually there to hear his final words.
System damage. Turn protocol 38529
Wes!
38.
Not only does Lois manage to remember these numbers though, she also figures out that they're actually coordinates leading to, where else, Lex's new lab. Pretty lucky set of circumstances, huh? You might even say it's damn near improbable, but let's not get too carried away here. Point is, Lois makes her way to the damn lab, but as you might expect, it's not exactly open to the public. Oh, that chain gate they have in place may as well not be there, considering how easy it is to squeeze through, but at least they had the foresight to post guards as well. While Lois is usually pretty adept at getting past such obstacles though, she unfortunately ends up getting stabbed in this instance as she starts bleeding out, collapsing and passing out just as her call for help finally reaches Chloe. As all that's going on, Clark goes to the Luthor mansion looking for further leads, only finding Lionel looking pretty shaken. As you may recall, he just witnessed Lana apparently blowing up, and upon hearing this news, Clark demands to know where Lex is. Lionel doesn't want Clark to act rashly though, so he refuses to say anything, instead rushing off to that dam himself, carrying a piece of kryptonite just in case. As it happens though, Clark was actually counting on this as he just follows him, meaning if Lionel had just stayed put, Clark would never have gotten to that damn dam in the first place. Whoops. I suppose he could have gotten there by way of Chloe though, as she ends up going there as well after that call from Lois. Why she wouldn't at least try to tell Clark about this, I don't know, but for whatever reason, she does indeed turn up alone, and seemingly far too late. After finding Lois and crying over her seemingly dead body though, something rather peculiar happens. Now, at this point, you might reasonably be asking, what the dickens was that all about? And the answer is... something. You see, in an earlier episode, we discovered that Chloe is apparently a so-called meteor freak, as someone with an ability to recognize them points her out as such, despite her not having any known abilities or the like. From that point on, both she and Clark are kinda just waiting for some sort of ability to manifest itself, and I suppose that's exactly what happens in this rather weird moment, as it seems Chloe now has the ability to heal. It also seems to potentially kill her though, as she now seems completely lifeless, but that couldn't really be the case, could it? Really? We'll have to wait until the next season to find out for sure, as the episode then shifts back to Clark and Lex. While Lex and his team are successful in extracting the necessary cells or serum or whatever from that possessed little boy, he manages to break free and kill the lab workers before they can do much with it. Attempting to escape to safety, Lex is instead confronted by Clark, who accuses him of murdering Lana, but their interaction is quickly halted when that possessed boy catches up to them. Deciding the Phantom is the bigger threat, Clark allows Lex to escape, but unfortunately for him, he's immediately intercepted and arrested when he makes it to the surface. As it happens though, he's not under arrest for anything that happened here, but rather for the murder of Lana Lang. How exactly did the police learn about that so fast? I'm honestly not sure, but I guess they must have found some kind of evidence, or maybe Lionel or Clark tipped them off? There definitely couldn't be any other explanation at least, that's for damn sure. As for Clark, while he attempts to fight off the last Phantom using that crystal thing he got from Raya, it doesn't seem to work too well this time. In fact, it only seems to give the Phantom a new body, and not just any body either. It actually clones Clark. There are a few subtle differences though, like their almost inverted color schemes and the fact that kryptonite only seems to make this new guy stronger, but other than that, they're identical. What does all this really mean though? Exactly who is this guy?
I'm you, only a little more bizarre.